What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are back with One World Under Doom. And this is why you don't trust Doom, and this is when Doom cuts loose. So, what we saw in the previous video was that Doom was facing off against Dormammu, and Dormammu was helping Doom understand his place in the bigger picture. So Doom had to call in for allies, and so what he gets are the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men. Now keep in mind, when Dormammu seized control, because Dr. Doom, when becoming Sorcerer Supreme, didn't really pay attention to the various, magical safeguards that had been established to prevent Dormammu from invading. Dormammu used that opportunity and then basically sent away or banished the X-Men, Avengers, and Fantastic Four. So Doom has brought them back, and that's why he tells them, attack, because they immediately start going into Dormammu. Now, what makes this particularly interesting is that Dormammu's power over the years in Marvel has waxed and waned, because a lot of you guys will probably ask the question, why doesn't Dormammu just destroy them? I don't necessarily have an answer to that question. In Hellcat issue number 3, for example, from Steve Englehart in the year 2000, we learned that, like Dormammu, for example, was more powerful than Mephisto. But in the Herald Supreme story arc from Mark Waid in 2019, Galactus traveled to the realm of Dormammu, where Dormammu's at his most powerful, and then consumed him. So again, inconsistent power levels. So it's one of these things where you just kind of have to roll with it. But with everything going on here, keep in mind, Doctor Strange is still magically enchanted, although he does lack the Eye of Agamotto. And so what this does is this picks up with him telling the Scarlet Witch that her job here needs to be to essentially seal off the portals of Dormammu to prevent his demons from entering. Now keep in mind, the Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, they don't necessarily trust Doctor Doom. But at the end of the day, when Wanda turns to Carol Danvers, the leader of the Avengers, Carol says, do it. So the response of Doom, carefully, Wanda, do not aim your magics at his portals. You must cut off Dormammu's very connection to his dimension. And the response of Wanda, that's dark magic. It will not work. But the response of Doom, it will. And so initially, Wanda thinks it's some kind of a trick. She thinks it's a ruse by Dr. Doom to maybe create some kind of magical feedback and take out all the magic users in the Marvel Universe. But the response of Doom, this is no trick, Wanda. I swear to you, on the soul of my mother, Doom fights for Earth. Now, when Doom swears something on the soul of Cynthia, you can bet your bottom dollar he's telling you the truth. It's probably the most important person in his entire life. The dude literally spent years traveling to hell fighting Mephisto to try to free his mother's soul. So it's no small declaration, and everybody in the magical community understands the significance of this, including Wanda. And so in turn, she casts magical spells that start blocking off the portals of Dormammu. And he is flabbergasted by this, right? You align yourself with him. And the response of the Avengers, we are not working for Doom, Dormammu, we're working for us. And Iron Man responds in saying, we just happen to have a single aligned interest right now, which is defeating you. And so Dormammu goes on the attack against everybody here. And for the most part, they are able to hold their own, but at the end of the day, they're a distraction. And Dr. Doom even says that. They attack Dormammu with everything they've got. They attack him with prejudice. They keep him busy. Time enough for me to recover the Eye of Agamotto and use its power to restore my own. Now, here's the thing to understand about the Eye of Agamotto in Marvel. There's more than one. The version of the Eye of Agamotto that most all of you guys are familiar with is the one that provides knowledge, which is to say the ability to see through magical spells. But there is another eye that grants its wielder power, and that seems to be the one that Dr. Doom has been using this entire time, which would certainly provide a lot more context and make a lot more sense with regards to the things that he's been doing over the course of the story that have enhanced his abilities. And so that's why once he summons all this power back to himself, he just says, Dormammu, Doom commands you to kneel. And this is the coolest thing, right? Because he says, magic to hold my bones together, even as their raw edges cut across my nerve endings. Willpower to acknowledge the screaming agony of my body, to look it dead in the eye, and then to ignore it. And a final ingredient, one found in abundance when I took on Dormammu and see what he's tried to do to my world and to me. Hate, enough to fuel them both. And so he casts this crazy magical spell, and in doing that, banishes Dormammu. But here's the thing, right? It gets so much better, because when that happens, the initial reaction here is, okay, so like, is Dormammu officially defeated? And the response of Doom is no, right? He's simply neutralized. I've banished him back to his meager dimension and held him there in eternal spells of my own design. Now, Wanda chimes in and she says that's impossible. Forever magic cannot be done. They have to be, and then Doom finishes and says, anchored to an event here on Earth. Correct, Wanda, and that is precisely what I have accomplished. The spells binding Dormammu are, as decreed, tied to earthly circumstances, yet they will, nevertheless, remain eternal, for their end comes only when Doom's rule of Earth does. Now, this is an amazing caveat here, because number one, something to understand, it's virtually impossible to destroy Dormammu. It can be done for a being of sufficient power, but Dormammu is so incredibly powerful relative to almost all the superheroes that you see on Earth. Not all, but a lot of them that you see on Earth. He might as well be impossible to beat. It would be like you or I punching the side of a building thinking we can actually demolish it, right? It's never going to happen. And the second caveat here is it kind of solidifies Doom's control. And that's one of the things that's said here, because what ends up going on is in the aftermath of this, as you guys know, whenever there's any kind of major skirmish involving Doom in One World Under Doom, you basically have a kind of round table discussion, which is really more propaganda than anything else. And they say all Earth's heroes working alongside Doom, it's a remarkable sight. Call me an optimist, but I think it portends further cooperation. And the other guy says, we can't forget that Dormammu's banishment will last as long as Doom's rule does, which is a great motivation for keeping him in power. And so again, unless they want Dormammu to invade, the Avengers and the superheroes kind of have to allow Dr. Doom to stay here. But what gets really interesting is the case that Thor makes here in a minute, because Thor goes to bat for Dr. Doom, and I never thought I would see the day, right? So initially, in the aftermath of all of this, you have cleanup, right? The superheroes kind of helping people where they can. They end up helping this guy, Frank Cooper. He's part of custodial services in the United Nations, which is where all this takes place. That'll become kind of important here in a second, but it's basically doing what they can. But one of the things that goes on here that the superheroes start to realize is that everybody survived. Well, all the people in this building, they're all alive. And so at that point, you switch over to Werner Schmidt, also known as Brain Drain. He basically has the ability to create instantaneous hypnosis, but he starts talking to everybody. And it's just sort of like, there's a concept that I'm struggling to reconcile, right? Specifically, he says this to Carol Danvers. And she says, okay, I'm all ears. And he says, Doom really did save everyone in this building. The instant Dormammu first attacked the United Nations, he protected them all. I am uncertain what his angle is. And Squirrel Girl chimes in and says, the same it's been since the start of all of this. He's trying to get people to like him. He's presenting himself as a hero. And honestly, it's not like he's been failing at it. He's given the world peace, healthcare, education, food security. And so when they kind of go back and forth on all of this, you have Susan Storm who shows up and is like, okay, cool. Final check. Let's make sure we didn't miss anybody, right? She uses her powers of invisibility, extends them over the immediate area. Everybody's able to see down through and the rubble and all that. And there's nobody left there. And so at that point, the focus shifts to Thor. Because again, there's a lot of debating going back and forth on whether or not Dr. Doom is actually beneficial for the world. And so Thor walks up and he says, I would put a question to thee, friends, and I would ask that thee consider it carefully. And so the Avengers are just kind of like, okay, like, what's your question, right? The Fantastic Four, the X-Men, everyone who's here is like, sure, let's hear what you have to say. And he says, heroes, is it not possible that Doom truly is thy best choice for Midgard? And the response of Tony is, okay, no, you cannot let yourself go down this rabbit hole. And the response of Thor, I asked you to consider my question. And Tony's just kind of like, I will. And Thor's response, then do so. And I pray that you listen. I am of Asgard, where the Allfather is both king and protector of all 10 realms. Odin demanded respect from mortals and gods alike, and he received it. The Allfather, my father, earned it. Under his rule, each of the 10 realms was saved from all manner of calamity, disaster, and ruin across timeless eons. Of course, Odin was not perfect. None of us are, and none know this better than myself, now that I have succeeded him as king. But more often than not, he was the best of us. More often than not, he was all that stood between us and apocalypse. My father was a great king and a great man. He made Asgard and all other realms what they are today. And I have been struggling mightily with why we are so certain that a system which hath served every other realm of the world tree so well since time immemorial would here simply fail to work. I remind you, I am not of Midgard, and this is not my land, but Thor does not shy his eyes away from truth. Those eyes tell me that since Doom claimed his throne, Midgard hath been safe, secure, and prosperous. They tell me, Avengers, that Doom hath done more to improve this realm in weeks than we in years. And so Tony Stark chimes in and says, okay, look, I promised you I would consider it, right? Considering, and I'm done. Are you out of your mind? And that's the irony of all of this. Thor makes a compelling case, and it falls on deaf ears, because seemingly the superheroes have kind of convinced themselves that they're right, except they haven't, because where Iron Man responds in that way, the response of Carol, I hate to say it, but he's not entirely in the wrong. Earth is still here today because of what Doom did. And the response of Tony, for all we know, Doom set this whole thing up. Maybe he let Dormammu in so that he could defeat him. And the response of Carol, and what? Right, so that Dormammu could just break every bone in his body in the process? And the response of Iron Man, those limbs are already healing inside his armor, probably magically. Maybe they weren't even really broken, I don't know. And that's where they're like, Tony, you sound like a conspiracy theorist. And his response, you sound like cult members. He's Dr. Doom. His literal last name is Doom. Which is actually a pretty compelling argument. He's not wrong. But again, Squirrel Girl says, I'm with Tony. Doom wants us to question ourselves, to feel like we're bad guys here, when we're not. And Tony even says, Doom is a master manipulator. He's arranged events to make us feel like this, to have us fighting each other. And the response of Thor? Really? And he accomplished this master manipulation how? Oh, that's what it was, by saving us and all other 9 realms from Dormammu. I, for one, would appreciate further machinations such as these. The world of heroism would be made so much simpler. And initially he almost gets cut off, but he says, where am I wrong, Lady Doreen? What have I missed? And her response, I mean, you miss like freedom, right? Earth is under an emperor. And his response, and Asgard is under its king, just as countless others of thy Midgard nations are. We quibble semantics, Lady Doreen. Doom is at his highest, and we hath raised Midgard up with him. We are all happily rid of Dormammu. Things go well, and our victory is so complete that even death herself could not claim a soul today. From the mighty Thor to the mighty Frank from custodial services, I say thee, we cannot ignore that simply because we do not like him. The truth is the truth. And that is just kind of like the nail in the coffin, right? Because everybody just sort of looks at each other and then they look at him, because he makes a solid point here. Just because you don't like Doom doesn't mean that Doom is wrong. But then someone chimes in and says, you do not have to like him, only for us to find out it's Maria Hill. Maria Hill is back in Marvel Comics, and she just says, Sue, Tony, Carol, everybody else, I'm Maria Hill, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., at least what's left of it. I'm here because I know why you keep losing and why Doom keeps winning. He's hiding something, and it's big. We know where it is. We know how to get to it, but it's going to take all of us. But here's the question to ask, as awesome as this is. How many times have we seen that over the course of One World Under Doom? How many times have we heard that over the course of One World Under Doom? These instances where they have this great big huge secret they've discovered that Dr. Doom has, only to find out it's no secret at all. So with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. I got to tell you, man, Ryan North is knocking this story out of the park. I don't know, man, between this story, the Ultimate Universe, DC's Absolute Universe, feels like both are firing on all cylinders. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and I will catch you all later. Peace.